Well, hello, everyone. I'm down here. I'm down in the corner. Hi. Where am I? Let's see. Does this work? Here I am. It's really me. It is. Hello, everyone. Hi, Saltines. What's up? What is up, my Saltines, my beautiful group of people? This is your channel too, not just mine. So I appreciate you coming in today to watch this video. Um, this is episode 10 of Tylee and JJ's Silver Linings. I have not seen it. It's usually Lori Vallow's brother and uncle. I'm assuming that's who is going to be here today. If not, we'll find out together. And this is important to me to listen to these guys because we still have Chad Daybell's trial coming up. We have stuff with Lori in Arizona coming up. So it's just interesting. It's human interest, video, stories, discussion here for this video today. So normally their videos are about 30 minutes. I'm going to run this video a little bit faster than normal, the standard. I'm going to speed it up just a little bit because I do find it a little slow at times. So I don't want to lose interest. I don't want you to lose interest either. Before we get started, please go down below, hit that subscribe button. Who's going to be my 1000th subscriber? Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And channel's growing. We're going to go places, do things together as a team. And I'm excited to see what these guys have to say today and see what your views and opinions are as well. So let me go ahead and do this. And I will stop throughout the video, throw in my 2 cents. Okay. And you throw your 2 cents in down below in the comments. All right. So let's go ahead. I got to move this other screen over just a smidge. There we go. I have 2 screens, you guys. By the way, can someone please help me? I need tech support. I need to know why, when I'm hardwired in, I have a new speedy laptop. Okay. I bought for the channel. I have one tiny ring light. I've got 2 monitor. Well, I have the computer monitor and then I have the extra monitor on the side. I have a microphone. I have an external camera. I'm hardwired in. Why is my internet still sketchy? I can have 8 devices plugged in. I could have 3 TVs running. My husband and I both on our cell phones. I could have a lot of stuff going on with no lag or anything. But for some reason, when I come on StreamYard, it starts lagging. I don't know what the heck. I don't know what's happening. Am I doing something wrong? I mean, I bought that cable so that I could hardwire directly into the internet box. Is that what it's called? The internet box. That reminds me of an episode on the IT Crowd. It's a British show. Here's the internet. It's in this little box. Okay, inside joke for myself, I guess. But if you can please put in the comments or message me on Instagram at AudreyBriggs68. I need some help. It's hard for me to get a hold of my son, who's very, very tech savvy. It's hard to get a hold of him. My husband doesn't have time. He doesn't know how. He doesn't want to know how. Sometimes you just don't want to know certain things. And this is kind of something he doesn't want to know. And he relies on me for tech support, which is hilarious. So I appreciate any help, suggestions. I turned my computer off and on. That seemed to help a little bit, but help. I need some help. All right, let's go ahead and start this broadcast.
My sister, Lori Vallow, murdered her children, Tylee and JJ, and buried them in a pet cemetery. And we're all trying to make sense of it. So let's talk about it. All right, welcome to another edition of our healing podcast. My name's Adam Cox. Next to me is my Uncle Rex, or we like to call him Grunkle Rex. And we've been talking a lot about healing lately. And so we are going to talk a little bit about that today as well. I will say this, that Rex has written a book called Create the Life That You Crave. And while I was reading certain chapters in that book, I've learned so much about your inner self-conscious and the things that we should really know about that. So we are going to talk a little bit about that today as well. I do want to mention this because people have asked about it. Rex and I have written a book. It is going to be coming out November 1st. It's called Lori's Lies and Family Ties. And we talk a lot about everything in this book. So if you didn't catch a podcast, or you would like, if you're a book reader, that will be available. And I guess if you go to Amazon and type in Lori's Lies and Family Ties, you'll be able to pop up and pre-order. It comes out November 1st. I want to mention that because that people have been asking about, well, when is your book coming out? So I wanted to mention that and backtrack to what I said in the last podcast. Rex has been a public speaker for a while. And so he's got a lot of things. He's a trainer. So he trains companies and people in companies to be better. And so with that being said, let's talk about today things about the conscience and those kinds of things, Rex.
Very good. When I started training, it was out of college. I went into the Air Force, straight to pilot training, and then was selected to come back after pilot training to be an instructor pilot. Well, what are you teaching when you're teaching pilots? You're teaching natural law. And I had some experiences where I went in to be a fighter pilot like my father was. But through the process, I was now, in retrospect, I'll say I was led to the idea that what I'm supposed to be doing with my life didn't really have anything to do with flying, although I was loving what I was doing.
Right.
But it had to do with training. And as that developed, it became obvious that I'm training natural law. And that's all the experience I had. And it has become my life's work. So I want to share a few of the foundational principles of natural laws that go into healing.
Before that, can we go back real quick? So when you're a pilot in the Air Force, you were flying F-15?
I flew against an F-15.
Oh, you flew against?
No, I was flying trainers. So I flew a T-37.
A T-37. So what was the best part about, like, did you ever go off the grid and like do like aerial stuff and flip around and that kind of stuff?
The cool thing is we didn't have to go off the grid.
Oh.
When you train new pilots, that's the first thing you train them in is aerobatics and spins.
You make them throw up?
About a fourth of the pilots that came threw up their first few flights. That's pretty normal.
Did you tell them that's natural law?
We
It's
told them that
natural law,
was
that's
natural
you.
reaction to such a strange environment. Your classroom's going upside down and flipping around. It is a rush.
And you know what? Being a huge fan of the movie Top Gun and Maverick, it just seems like those planes would just be a blast to be in. And you're telling me that when you were flying, you just had a blast.
Yeah, I just loved it.
And so at a younger age, you thought that was your life purpose, was to be a pilot?
From when I could remember and realizing my dad was a fighter pilot, he was a prisoner of war in World War II, he was a flying ace before he was a prisoner.
Wow.
And I just thought that was my blood. I thought that was my destiny. That's my life purpose.
Okay.
Turns out your life purpose it's not an accomplishment. It's not what your job is. There's a lot more to life purpose.
I love that, because when I was telling you and I had a conversation at your house about life, your purpose in life. And I thought, well, my purpose in life was to be a radio DJ, and I did it my whole life. And I was like, that was my purpose. And you're like, that's your job. Well, what's your purpose? So this is going to be very interesting, because I don't know how many people that are watching right now actually know what their purpose is or even thought about it.
And it's actually purposes, but those are stories for another time.
You're right. Sorry, I do, because there's all kinds of purposes. A purpose to be a parent. There's like a bunch of those. So we'll get to that in another episode. Sorry.
Right. But it's all underpinned by natural law. Our whole experience in this life is governed by natural laws. It's a common saying that you can make your own decisions. You can choose how to act, but you cannot choose the consequences of those acts. Those consequences are governed by natural laws. And so the example of natural law that people usually use is gravity.
Karma.
That's a good example.
That's called
It's a
karma.
natural law, meaning gravity works the same wherever you are on this planet, whoever you are, and whenever you're there. But the trouble with using gravity as an example is people then want all other natural laws to have a simple name and
Consistency of
an example.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work like that. You have to really put some conscious effort into recognizing and applying natural laws. You have to pay attention. And one of the people that I refer to a lot in my life, a great example in my life, I have a cousin, my cousin Ned, and he is just so well read. I wish I could talk on and on about cousin Ned, but
Yeah.
I called him once and said, if I want to recognize my conscience, to hear my conscience, do I have to be in a quiet setting, do you think? Do I have to be meditating? And I loved his answer. He said, a quiet setting works 50-50 for me. Sometimes I hear my conscience. Sometimes I fall asleep and take a nap. He said, it's not a sensory experience. You don't hear a voice. I know we talk about voices in your head, especially when we're talking about Lori.
Right.
But that's not what happens internally. You don't hear a voice. You don't see things. You don't get this through your senses. You get this by awareness, by observation. And with natural laws, it's usually looking in retrospect. Or another way of saying it is, we can easily recognize natural laws when they're about to come into play. Every time you hear someone say, hey, hold my beer and watch this, and you know what's about to happen,
Right.
it's because you're looking at what are they about to do and what will the consequences be?
That's
this does not look pretty.
Right. Experience.
That's you observing natural law. And that's what we call common sense.
Force
Common sense is simply observing natural law and predicting an outcome because you know natural law.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about common sense, that's it. We're talking about natural law. Now, how this relates to healing. I mentioned the last podcast, excuse me.
Well, if you're going to get a drink, I'm going to get a drink. Hold on. Let's go ahead.
Should we go out to Maverick and get a drink? Okay.
My water has Kool-Aid in it. Okay.
Oh, you drank the Kool-Aid.
Sean's got a Diet Coke. Okay,
as long as you didn't drink Lori's Kool-Aid.
No, this is my own Kool-Aid.
Sorry, we have a lot of dark humor in our family, and that's not even the worst of it.
Yeah.
So we're talking about natural law and the natural laws of healing. The first natural law of healing. Now, there's not a sequence just because there's a first. All the rest come after. But the first natural law of healing is that it is a universally unique process for each person. Each person in the universe heals a different way. And it depends on what they're healing from. In our case, we're healing from the trauma in our family of all of the fallout from the Lori stuff. There's not one thing. It's very complex. There's a lot of it.
Yeah.
So we don't know exactly how to heal. And we're working through it is what we say. And we're still working through it and probably will be the rest of our lives. We feel that anyone that has been involved in this Lori situation probably is scarred or needs healing in some way because it is so offensive to us as people. That's why we're trying to figure it out. So what we want is, what is our path for healing? Fortunately, the same power that gave us life and put into us our natural desires, like having an ego, self-preservation, appetites, passions, also gave us an internal guidance system to keep those natural desires in check. We call that our conscience, but all of us have different understandings or different terminology with conscience. So let me just express what I'm calling our conscience. Okay. I'm not saying everyone has to believe this or my way of saying it is the right way, but just so you know what this is at the foundation of this conversation. Your conscience, your internal guidance system, is not emotion, and it doesn't get caught up in the emotion of a situation. It is not, I guess I'm saying what it is by saying what it is not. It is not an appetite or passion. It's not something that comes and goes. It's not your value system. You don't educate your conscience. Your conscience is connected to the wisdom of the universe. So it's your ability to recognize, I probably shouldn't do that. It leads you to recognize the consequences of the choice you're going to make so you can make the best choice in the situation.
So just as you said that.
So to me, that makes sense. Again, these guys are religious. I'm not. So I'm listening very careful because they believe in something that I don't. So I'm not going to automatically just say, yep, that's right. But what he's saying, I believe, what Rex is saying is he's talking about the little angel on our shoulder versus the little devil on our shoulder. And I do agree with Rex when he's saying our conscience does not need to be educated. That is knowing right from wrong. And that is in our DNA as human beings. Even animals have that. So I believe that's how I'm taking it here. And I think they're leading up to Lori not listening to the little angel and listening to the devil.
What came to my mind was a comment that we got about Lori in court about what she said was to cover up her conscience, guilty. She knew what she was doing. She's not allowing herself to on that road because she doesn't want to deal with the consequences, which would be very painful to her. And that was a comment that somebody had mentioned. Now, is there anything to that?
I love that comment. We got so many insightful comments, that being one of them. Yes, that's true. And here's how that works. This conscience that's telling us the consequences of the choices we're considering is available to everyone all the time. Not everyone listens to it all the time. In fact, and there I go using the word listen, which is a sensory word.
Yeah.
Not all of us are aware of our conscience or want to be aware of it. I'm going to use my Bluebell ice cream analogy here because it's so personal to me. When Bluebell ice cream, especially homemade vanilla, is available to me, I'm going to eat it.
No doubt. No matter what your doctor said, no matter anything, there's nothing stopping you.
I've had a heart attack 4 or 5 years ago. It was a real serious one.
Yeah.
I didn't have a near-death experience. I made it through that, but I still justify eating Bluebell ice cream. Now, when I made the decision that I'm going to keep that part of my life, my conscience, not being emotional, didn't rip me a new one. Mm-hmm. My conscience just said, okay, the consequences of that is your intake of cholesterol is going to be higher. That almost killed you before. So make a good decision. Well, I didn't like my conscience telling me that. And when we don't like our conscience telling us something against what we want, we have a dissonance. They call it cognitive dissonance.
It's a fight, right?
It's a fight.
Inside
so my ego wants to win that fight, and my appetite for Bluebell.
Right.
And so I readjust my world and my thinking to try to shut that conscience off. And I say, well, I work out 2 hours a day. I can eat some Bluebell. Now, when I'm making that argument, I know that that's not what caused a heart attack. The fact that I work out 2 hours a day didn't prevent a heart attack.
Right.
Because what caused it wasn't my heart being in bad shape. It was the cholesterol. And that's what has. So I knew what I was doing when I rationalized with rational lies, and I adjusted my world around it so I could still eat my Bluebell and ignore my conscience.
So we do that on a daily basis.
All the time.
Even probably 50 times a day. You have an argument with yourself about a decision that you're going to make. And so how do we go with the right decisions? Or you don't most of the time, right? Is it a 50-50?
I don't need to answer that because we all know. We know how to do that. Sometimes we don't want to. Sometimes we do it and we feel good about it. Sometimes we don't do it and later we feel bad. We can all right now in our life stop and think, when was the last time I did something that I knew I shouldn't have? Maybe it was driving here, maybe going too fast. Maybe it was saying something to someone that we shouldn't have said. Maybe it was something we drank, some entertainment we took in.
Right.
We all know. Oh, there's a great clip. We should have had this prepared for
Which one?
The podcast that just came to mind, from Scent of a Woman.
Oh, yeah.
Al Pacino.
Hoo-ha. I love
Al Pacino, who was defending a young friend of his without going into to all the detail. Now, he was a reprobate in his life.
Yeah.
He didn't make very many good decisions along the way.
Yeah.
But he was giving this stirring defense of his young friend.
Oh, yeah.
And he was, part of that was, and I recommend you go and look at this clip. He said, now I have come to the crossroads in my life.
Right.
I knew which path to take. Without exception, I knew. And I never took it.
Oh, yeah.
You know why? It was too damn hard. Sorry for the D word there.
Yeah.
But that's such a great clip. That's what happens in our life.
Yep.
Sometimes we just don't want to take that path.
Sean's trying to pull up the clip, but it says there's an F-bomb in there too, I think, so be careful.
Several, so you have to go right to the clip.
Sean's like pulling up the thing, he's getting ready to play the clip. I'm like, maybe not. But I do like that. I do like the analogy, and I think that most of us, have these decisions to make every single day. And my thing is, like, when I make good decisions, like, I'll have a checklist of things to do during the day, and I write it on paper and I have a box and I check it off. At the end of the day, when I check off I made good decisions by doing all the things that I said I was going to do and made the decisions to do those. And when I check it off at the end of the day, and I was like, I checked off all my boxes, I felt good inside. So when I make the bad decisions, or like, I'm not going to do that or not do that, you have a weird, ugly feeling inside. So it depends on how you want to feel with the decisions you make.
And even if you aren't structured like that.
Oh, I'm the only one structured like that.
No,
right? Like, not everybody's the same.
Not everybody
is
structured like that. A lot of people are, but you can still look back and think of all the good things you did. You know that good feeling when you.
By the way, I can tell you from firsthand experience, having a checklist every day, whether it's on your phone or on paper, on a whiteboard, anywhere, that is a very, very good thing to do to help you feel organized, to help you not feel overwhelmed, and to really try not to trigger your depression and anxiety. It's a huge help to do in your life, even if it's like, well, Audrey, I just have to go to drive through and pick up something from Rite Aid at the pharmacist. It doesn't matter. It'll take it off your brain, put it on the paper. You can check your paper when you want to, or your app on your phone. I use an app called Sticky Notes. My sticky notes have lots of different things on them, from a target list to my daily list. So I highly encourage you to start making a list. It helps a lot.
Do good things for people, you just feel good. You can recognize your conscience. That's how you learn to be aware of your conscience. So what Lori did, if I can start with that, and I'll get back to the healing topic. What Lori did is just did what we all do at the beginning. Hey, I want this, whatever it was, ego, or, we've had lots of discussions on what it was, even here in this podcast. She wanted sex, money, power. Well, the conscience comes in right away. She had to have had the battle like all of us, and did what many of us do many times, said, nope, I want it. I'm going to readjust my world and my thinking to make allowance for this step. And then, like all of us, you just keep going. Unlike all of us, the rest of us who haven't murdered our children, draw a line somewhere. We allow our conscience to prevail at some point and say, no, I won't go past this line.
I'm not going to do this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And most of us hold to that. Well, at least in this case, with a comparison to Lori, she didn't. She just let it keep going. And your world has to keep adjusting around that. You have to make this fantasy that you built in your mind grow and grow. And hers and Chad's, and they got together, and oh my goodness, that multiplied
You have to leave
this
reality.
fantasy world. So it's a
reality.
delusion. Everyone can recognize it. You two are deluded. Everyone's recognizing that your fantasies are far off.
But as they're doing that, and they're making these conscious decisions to do what they were doing and to follow this plan, did they ever feel like bad inside, of like, I can't believe we're doing this, or guilt? Does that, like, why wouldn't guilt pop in and be like, oh my gosh, we're out of our minds?
We don't know because we can't see into their hearts, but I believe every time they initially had a decision to take it further or to adjust their fantasy, their delusion further, they had that same battle of
that we all have.
Yeah. Hey, there is guilt there. Nope, I'm staying in my delusion. I think that here's one little glimpse of that. One of the investigators on Lori's defense team, we all got to talk with him. I got to talk with him a few times. They said when she read a letter from someone that was important to her, she read it, and for 1 second, it was pleading with her to tell the truth, that Chad's got to throw you under the bus, whatever it was saying.
Right.
And the investigator was in the room. She said for 1 second, she could tell that got through. It was a glimpse. And when that was over, Lori squared her shoulders, said, nope, I'm not. And
so she made that decision right then and there.
Right then.
Yeah.
But she felt it for a second, but then right back to the delusion.
Yeah.
And now what you were saying earlier, can you imagine if you've lived in that delusion and you've created these horrible, or you've done these horrible, horrible things? Can you imagine coming out of the delusion? What if you said, okay, I'm just going to listen now to my conscience, and you break away completely? How do you even stay in life?
Well, she didn't, because when you heard what she read in court, that proved that she won't allow her conscience to, or she's not giving it any thought of what the consequences are of all this. She's avoiding it, completely avoiding it.
So I believe when you're into your delusion, people say, well, Lori believed what she was saying. Yes, when you're in the delusion, you believe the fantasy or the delusion that you created. But putting that crap in there, when we said they were just making up crap as they went, the zombies and all that.
Dark spirits, light spirits. And
that's crap when you put it in. But once it's in there, you are committed to it. Like Alex was committed to it.
Oh, for sure.
And now that's the story. But when you put it in there, you knew you were making up crap. So that's why I say, yeah, they knew what they were doing was wrong at one point, but when they committed to it, then it just fit into their delusion. Well, that's how the natural laws work. We let the natural process, and they had the same natural process we all have. They let it go where they chose for it to go. And that's why I said the last podcast, the blood is on their hands. Those three people, they're the ones that perpetrated all of that. Anyone else that can affect it, and who knows, all the people that did affect it and maybe avoided much worse situations. We don't know that, but we know they're guilty for that. Now, as far as healing, those same factors, the natural parts of ourself, are involved in healing. In that, we have an internal guidance system that is good for us individually, that's always available, and will always give us whatever you feel the source is. I'll say the wisdom of the universe will always give us wisdom, will always show us the consequences of the path and make it clear what's going to be in our best interest. Make it clear what we truly want. See, I say I truly want Bluebell ice cream. My conscience would point out to me, no, you want to be healthy in your life so you can enjoy the relationships you're enjoying, so you can give the contributions you're giving. That's what you really want. You want that a lot more than you want Bluebell. And I say, you're right. I will do that until I come across a freezer that has some homemade vanilla in it.
What about one spoonful? I mean, that doesn't get.
Exactly.
We're not talking
How could
about.
that hurt?
We're not telling you the whole bowl. You're not going to eat the whole thing.
But
Just a bite.
you have to buy at least a pint to get that spoonful.
Yeah.
And once you have the pint, are you going to waste a pint of Bluebell
No,
homemade
you
vanilla?
take one bite one day, then you put it in the freezer. It's called discipline. Now, this is a question I have for you. Discipline is a huge thing that most of us have a problem with.
Don't like it because it's too hard.
I know, but discipline is part of your conscience, right? Because you have to have discipline to listen to your conscience and your self-guidance system. But a lot of us, if you don't have a lot of discipline or learn to have discipline, self-discipline, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble a lot of times.
Definitely. But let me point out, discipline doesn't guide your conscience or doesn't depend on your conscience. Your conscience points you in the direction of discipline.
Oh, it
and
tells
then lets
you.
you decide.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. It never tells us what we have to do. It just makes it obvious that the choice we have is stupid.
You're right. You've made some
choice
really
we're
bad.
about to make.
We're about to make some bad, and we've all been there before. I'm about to make a bad decision, and I'm still going to make it because I want that. And you do it, and then you pay whatever the consequences are. Sometimes they're not that bad. Sometimes they're terrible. So
back to the healing.
Yeah.
I want to make sure
Sorry, this podcast is about healing. It is, and I derail our podcast all the time. Sorry,
but it doesn't make sense. What I'm about to say doesn't make sense unless you have a grasp on how your conscience guides you, because that's the first law. Healing is so individual. Even yours and mine, we see things the same. We have similar backgrounds, similar DNA, but our paths are very different. And you need to be able to identify your individual path. And it won't always come to your mind. I'm not saying your conscience is limited, but our ability to draw on it is limited because it translates into our reasoning, and our reasoning is limited by our life experience, our understanding, our knowledge, a lot of limitations right there.
Yeah.
And so that's why we need by talking about it with the right people. And a lot of people that aren't on this podcast and listen to us a couple times said, I don't want to hear them for whatever reason. More power to them to go get the healing wherever they can find it. What we were doing wasn't providing it. So more power to them.
Right.
Or maybe you need a lot of different people. But my point is, rely on your internal guidance to tell you with what you have available, whether it's podcasts, counselors, situations, relationships, which relationships are helpful and positive, healthy and positive. That's where I was trying to get.
Yep.
Which are healthy, which are unhealthy. So you can make the choice to distance yourself from the unhealthy because, and let me say a word about this too. It's so important because we're talking about family members a lot here. And so you're talking about love. Love is unconditional. Relationships are not. There are some relationships where we can still love the person, but change the conditions on the relationships because part of that is unhealthy. And we need to set, and we talk about
boundaries. Yeah, setting boundaries.
You need to set boundaries, not because you don't love the person, but because you need the healing. And your conscience is telling you need the healing. That relationship isn't good. Well, I love them. Good. Love them from a distance. But you can't, that's why people resist other people telling them that. They need to hear that from their conscience, recognize that's from their conscience, and make the appropriate decision based on that.
Where does forgiveness fall into when it comes to healing? Like for me, the way I'm built, like I have to forgive or it will eat me up inside and it will ruin me inside. So, and I know people, get mad if you say, well, I'm forgiving this person. How could you forgive them? I was like, it's not for them. It's for me because I don't know what happens to me, but I'll just be consumed with it. It'll just eat me up if I don't forgive. And I don't know who's built like that and who's not built like that, but is that forgiving? Is that part of the healing?
See, that's a great example of how the healing path is individual.
Okay.
Some people don't even have to think about the topic of forgiveness because it's not part of their healing path.
Okay.
And others will say, well, everyone needs to forgive.
We all get judged. Everybody's judging people about it. Yeah.
And people say, well, that's a religious principle that you have to forgive. Okay, I'm all for giving in the broad sense, but in my individual path of healing, do I need to forgive someone in order for me to heal in this situation? I don't go by broad rules for that, or I'm suggesting we don't go by
because we're all
broad
individual
rules.
with that, right?
Let's go with our individual guidance, just like medicine. To me, the most exciting part of medicine is the field of genomics, which brings it down to me. How does this medicine affect me? What are the parameters of my personal health? Healing's the same way. It's individual. Do what you need to do for yourself to heal. And the only
That's fair.
guidance that's 100% on that is your internal guidance, whatever you want to call it. If saying conscience is too religious, call it your intuition.
The spirit.
Whatever you want to call it. Call it that, but follow your guidance. So we have to observe and learn how that guidance works for us, which is another individualized pursuit in life.
I love it. Well, listen, thank you guys for hanging out with us. We'd love to hear your comments on maybe how you healed, things that you've done that we can all learn from. We're about learning, helping, and hope and healing. All those words that start with an H. We're all about
the H words.
We're all about the H words.
Okay. Well, I mean, they kind of sound like me. They're here for help and healing and positive information. So I appreciate Rex not going religious on people because I think, yeah, I appreciate that part because a lot of people, some people like me, you start hearing religious wording. No, I'm not going to go down that path. I don't want to hear it. I've experienced religion and that's not for me. So I appreciate the fact they're trying to stay neutral. I get that other stuff. You got to look between the lines, filter out some information, but I would agree with Rex. It is individual. It's individual. You guys know how I feel about forgiveness. It's not a requirement. And again, that's religion making it a requirement. And I can tell you right now, as a psychic medium, that Adam is the way he is in this subject, on the subject, because of his religious background. I think if he did not grow up in a religious background and had some more common sense, non religious experiences, he probably wouldn't be eaten up alive by guilt and letting go and being perfectly happy without forgiving a certain situation. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. They were only supposed to do 10 episodes. This is number 10. So I guess we'll find out together if there's a number 11. They didn't talk about it, they didn't mention it. And normally they do mention towards the end of their broadcasts about the upcoming episodes. So I guess we'll find out together. And yeah, Lori is something else, isn't she? All right, you guys, thanks so much for watching. And I'll see you real soon. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye.